Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Council. They say you can't judge a book by its cover, and nowhere is that more appropriate than at the Archive, 725 West 2nd Street. From the outside, the former medical supply warehouse could be a windowless, nondescript storage location for nearly anything. Only a sign or two out front clue you into what lies within. But step inside and step into the past. Owner Dale McAllis, who moved from an East Narton location to his current Lansdale site in 2007, has compiled and curated a collection of more than 50,000 books, past and present, and more than 100,000 more pieces of collectible paper ephemera. Collectible offerings for sale from decades-old letters and postcards to nearly complete sets of magazines and newspapers, heralding in headlines the happenings of the day, from local events to the beginnings and ends of civil and world wars. One of the first volumes I noticed when I visited the shop last week was a set of encyclopedias from 1798, the collected knowledge of an era more than 2 centuries ago, even including early aviation, the hot air kind, of course, well before the Wright brothers. Dale welcomes all visitors and hopes the diversity of his offerings will entice them to stay a while and return often. But he acknowledges such a huge collection can be overwhelming. So much so that people visiting for the first time can sometimes be so paralyzed, he says, that they have to go home and absorb it all before they come back. But they do come, and from far and near. It helps he has an ever-changing selection culled from what are often trailer loads of books, magazines, newspapers, bound volumes, letters and cards, maps and photos. From sources including estates and libraries, he recently brought in trailers from Peoria, Illinois, and Canada. He sorts through them carton by carton and piece by piece, all by hand, which explains the white duct tape bands on his fingers to protect against the drying and splitting that comes from handling large volumes of paper. Some of the books and papers Dale gives to charity, some he stores, some he ships to auction. But much of it winds up on the shelves of the archive. And to help visitors make sense of it all, he diligently categorizes his offerings, not cataloging them all, which would be nearly impossible for one man, but sorting them and separating them into rooms all their own. There's the children's book room, with Harvey the White Rabbit in his cage in the middle for youngsters to pet. There's a room filled with books about animals, from wild birds to whales and dolphins. There's a room of antique books and classic authors, complete with a shelf of cliff notes, in case you don't really want to slog through the old classics. But you can still spend time with Jane Austen if you wish. There's a room with ephemera, single copies and plastic sleeves of memorable magazines, advertising cards, photos, and ads, and 19th century tabloid newspapers, from Police Gazette to Harper's Weekly. More magazines are a little further back, Life issues dating back to 1936 when it started as a news weekly, Popular Mechanics, Popular Science, Times and TV Guides, People and Mad. Decades old and great potential birthday gifts. Fantasy and science fiction from the 50s and 60s, specialized publications for fans, from model railroading to pony cars. There's a room for nonfiction, and if you're not too squeamish, you can touch the skin and teeth of an alligator on a table in the room, a souvenir of Dale's from when he worked for an auction company. And there's a room for fiction, contemporary and classic, for those who just like to read and for folks who are completists for collections of authors from Clancy to King. In the back are non-paper collectibles, coins, jewelry, CDs, LPs, both from Dale and from third-party vendors. Upstairs is a small area for bargain books and a larger area for storage. If you have a specific interest, just let him know and he'll call you when he finds it. He's got a long list of wants with rights of first refusal, and he understands a collector's passion. It's his passion as well, a labor of love, or a hobby gone wild, he calls it. In an era of digital posts, Twitter feeds, and Google aggregation, we sometimes forget the value of the published word, not just as a report of the moment, but as the first rough draft of history. The printed word can transport us back to our childhood, our grandparents' childhood, Okinawa, or Gettysburg. Holding history in your hand, Dale calls it. Nonfiction extends our understanding of the world, and novels take us to worlds without limit. This is how we preserve and pass our culture through the generation, and it certainly deserves an archive as vast as the archive. It's my pleasure to ask Dale McAllis, his mom Barbara, his fiancée Lisa, to come on up now and accept the honor for the archive as Lansdale's Business of the Month. for May 2016.
Yeah, congratulations. I can personally say that I've spent many hours wandering through that building. Yeah, it's wonderful in there. You can always find something. So if you haven't ever checked it out, definitely set aside a couple hours. If you're a bibliophile, for sure, you'll have a great time in there. So thank you very much.